I'm thinking about the music industry a lot lately because, I like to think of myself as a bit of a genius, I like to think of myself a bit of a savant, a bit of an intellectual. No, I'm joking, but I like to think about issues, about problems that I could solve and just like work out in my head. Because I'm a bit of a procrastinator, I don't usually follow through, but I have ideas. So I was thinking the other day, like, it's annoying how many stories you hear of artists saying that they got jerked from a deal, they got finagled into signing some 360 deal. That ended up meaning the label took like basically every portion of any sort of revenue they were making. The label took a cut from it, even if they had absolutely no input to it whatsoever. The label just tricking artists in general out of their masters, taking away their rights to their music. Just loads of like shady business happens in record industry world, and it reminded me a lot of old money. It reminded me like the record industry is holding on to this old money aspect. Like they want to control artists in that regard so that they can get money and value from it. Because the moment artists collectively figure out that they don't need record labels in the traditional ways record labels were set up, is the moment record labels become obsolete, right? Because the traditional way record labels were set up, they were set up to take an artist. There was always a ceiling that you could reach, right? Because if you're an independent artist who kind of, let's say, toured the southeast of England, right? So not the southeast of London, southeast of whole England. There was a ceiling for your talent, right? Because there's only so much you could do with your small team. There's only so much exposure you could get. But the idea of a record label was that they could amplify your voice, right? They could allow you a bigger marketing budget. They could allow you more funds for touring. They could allow you better booking agents, or booking agents with more contacts who could get you seen in front of more people. They could allow you radio play. They could get you placements in TV, on adverts. All these things could happen. But that got immediately kind of killed when the internet came in, right? Because the internet is essentially your record label. You don't need 21 to amplify your voice. You just upload it onto SoundCloud, onto YouTube, and your voice has been amplified. Upload to Spotify, iTunes. Everyone's got access to it in the whole entire world, right? You've got a potential customer base in the billions and billions and billions, right? Not to sound like Trump, billions and billions, right? But you've got access to so many people that you can just buy the click of a button. So the internet kind of killed it, but there's somehow the record industry is still hoodwinking people into believing that they need them as much as they think they do, which they don't. What they may do, what they might need record labels for, is maybe some industry connects, is maybe access to certain people, or to be put in front of certain people, introductions and stuff. There is some things that record labels are still good at, but for the most part, marketing, I'd argue they're not that great at. Placement, I'd argue they're not that good at. Just generally the way kind of like artists move and the way they approach things, they probably haven't got an understanding of what the current customer expects to see from an artist, the kind of taste level they want to see, the approach they want to see, what interviews they do, what interviews they don't do. Like, they don't really have an understanding of that. For them, it's just like, go do every single radio interview in London, go to every single radio interview in Manchester, in Liverpool, and that's how you promote your thing. It's like, no, why don't you go and focus your attention to the 1 or 2 free stations that actually rock your stuff, and then for the most part, go and interview yourself with 1 or 2 people, 1 or 2 free podcasts that actually like you, or culturally relevant people on YouTube, whatever. Get them to interview. Like, there's a lot of different approaches you could do it. But anyway, I was thinking about that a lot, and I was thinking about the idea of licensing music, right? Of why don't we I would love to reach a point where artists are able to license their music to different platforms, right? To different digital streaming services, DSPs as they like to call them. So if I'm an artist, I can license my next album to Spotify, then my next album to Apple. I can just bounce back and forth off of them and just get in a bit of a bidding war, and I can just get paid up front for that album, right? I still retain the rights for it, but you get exclusive rights to stream it on your platform. So, because what the artist is understanding is that these DSPs are making a hell of a lot of money on ads through the streams of your albums, right? And some artists don't see that much money from streams, right? It's not the best recurring revenue stream in that regard, right? You have to stream a lot in order to get not that much. So, which is why a lot of artists tour, which is why a lot of artists sell merchandise, which is why a lot of artists like Post Malone are even starting festivals and stuff, because you need to diversify your income stream, because music isn't enough, especially for your level of influence, right? If you're Post Malone and you're a fairly well-known person, and imagine, let's say comparatively, because I know for general public it's hard to grasp, but let's say comparatively, you're only seeing about 1.2 million of revenue coming for your album. that isn't really comparable to the level of influence or level of impact you have around the world. You should be maybe seeing more than that, but the major chunk of it is going to the DSPs, right, the digital streaming services. So why not we get to a point where if I'm Post Malone, I can license my album to Spotify, and then we can work out a deal, same like a boxer would with a network and stuff, and work out a deal of how much you want to pay me for this one-off album, or if it's even a one-off, just an album I'm making, how much you want to pay me for it, and then you get an upfront fee, and you also get a cut of the streams. But the main point is that you retain the rights of the actual album itself. You have full ownership of it, and I think that's a perfect way to go about things. I think so, in my kind of like Neanderthal amateur brain. And then anyway, so I was thinking about that, and I saw this clip with Black. I'm sure you guys are familiar with him. It's spelled like 6 with a L-A-C-K. He's got an interview coming up soon on the Joe Budden pull-up series on YouTube, so you should check that out soon when it comes out. But this clip Joe Budden posted up on Instagram was very, very telling, and also very, very sad. I want to play it now. Hope you guys can hear it.
I just feel like we went through shit that we weren't supposed to go through, like being at that label. Like when I get to the point where I'm outside and I'm staying up so that I don't have to feel like I slept outside, or I'm hungry as shit and
why you ain't eat something?
I was broke as fuck. I was literally like,
nah, you wasn't working for Flow Rider. You was broke as fuck with team flight, and y'all split
in the 3 to 4 years that I was signed. I never did one paid show, ever, and I did a ton of shows with them. I never got paid for any show.
Oh no, Flo. We gotta square up, my G. We gotta fight this nigga.
I never got paid ever. I never saw a check. Never saw like.
That's nasty.
The only time I saw money was when I was like, "Yo, can I get something to eat?" from whoever was at the studio.
Now, if you didn't hear that properly, that is one of the most fucked up stories you're going to hear, right? This is someone called Black, right? Slack, who, well, I think how people pronounce his name, but he's pronounced Black with a 6 in front of it, right? Really amazing singer, incredible artist. But I did wonder when he came out, he was way too polished when he came out. I was like, this guy's really good. Where was he before this, right? One of those artists just come out and you're like, this sounds incredible. Like, where was this dude before? And it makes complete sense, right? He was one of those kind of child prodigies who was unfortunately snapped up by a fellow artist who didn't have his best intentions in mind. And that fellow artist happens to be Flow Rider. So if you know anything about Flow Rider, you know he's very bombastic, very, flaunty, with the kind of, gold chains and the cut-off sleeve denim jackets with his big arms, flying private with hot girls, that kind of, big baller Miami, Florida lifestyle. He signs this young kid who's an amazing singer and somehow forgets about him, right? To the extent where he's not eating and he's not being paid for 4 years, and he's having to sleep in his car, or like you said, he's having to stay up so he can lie to himself that he's not sleeping, that he's not homeless. He just stays up the whole day. Like, that's insane. But that's what happens with record labels and with people that sign with artists, because the record industry, by its very nature, is just a scummy industry, right? It just encourages this behavior. I'm sure Flow Rider isn't a bad dude, right? But I'm sure being exposed to that industry and him on his come up, he must have got fucked over too in that regard. So it's in his DNA now, because you've been fucked over. You also, unless without you realizing, are going to fuck over the next guy. I personally wouldn't do it, right? Because if I got fucked over, the last thing I want to do is do it to somebody else. I would just kind of correct course and make sure no one else had to suffer what I had to suffer. But one thing that really struck me about this was that if you're Flow Rider and you're flying around private, how can your conscience be okay to sleep at night in your literally in your silk sheets, knowing that one of your artists hasn't eaten? I never understood that. I never ever got that. Like, and I guess when you're a kid, you see it, right? Because I remember when I was a kid, we had a neighbor we had a neighbor who lived kind of a couple doors down from us, we used to hang out with, who was notoriously stingy, right? But he was kind of like pampered by his parents, so he kind of understood why that was. So whenever he had sweets or crisp and shit, he wouldn't share. He was just like, imagine we were outside. He would just have it. He would just eat it all by himself. Imagine your kids, like, you just want sugary things, right? Sweet and savory. You don't give a fucking. You don't care, right? So yeah, so he just wouldn't share. And if he did share with you, he'd share with like clenched fist, like the actual clenched fist, like he'd grab the bottom of the crisp packet and like let you only get the top crumbs of it. Like, what is wrong with this dude? And then the moment you had anything to eat, he'd be dipping his hands in there before he said hi. So it was like a weird attitude, but you always thought that was something that only happened when you were younger, right? It happened when, you know, your mum kind of spoiled you and gave everything that you want, and you kind of a bit spoiled, a bit entitled. But in life kind of would give you a lot of bumps and knocks along the way, and you'd kind of like lose that, you know, selfish nature of you, or you'd kind of suppress it a little bit. But I guess it doesn't happen like that. I guess sometimes people just end up being adult babies. Because I don't know if I could be a flow rider and have an artist under my wing and know that he doesn't have a bed to sleep at night, that he hasn't eaten, that he's having to sell his shoes to pay for studio time. Like, I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I could, like, with a clear conscience, be okay with that. Like, even if you're like a capitalist and, you know, you're out for the money, out for just for yourself, like, I want this kid to be operating at the highest level so he can write the best raps and the best tracks for me. I don't want him to be like on edge and anxious and stuff and worried about where his next meal's going to come, because he's not going to perform well. He's not going to help me. So selfishly, I'd want to just help you. I'd want to make sure you're okay. I don't understand it. I really, really don't get it. But again, I think that scummy behavior from industry kind of trickles down to artists, so that when they do some of them have good intentions, but for the most part, when they do sign people, they just repeat, the torture and the pain that they've gone through. Who's the best, like, kind of person to sign for an industry? Maybe just Rick Ross, maybe Jay-Z. That's it. The only people that you look at their roster of people that they're signed to, they don't look like they're suffering. They don't look like they're hungry. I think Joe Budden mentioned in his podcast recently. They look like they're all thriving. Everyone else, like, it's just complete hit and miss with their artists. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and you have no idea whether or not it's the artists themselves who are not paying attention to their signees, or whether it's like the people that they signed are being lazy and not working. You don't know, but for the most part, it's stories like this where Black is like, you know, he's having to stay up so he doesn't feel like he's homeless. Like, that is ridiculous. And again, if we're able to get people to license their tracks, right, license their albums to different platforms, shop them around, get some money up front, and also maintain their rights to, to partner up with a touring agent in order to organize a tour, to do their own merch, and create, like, you know, some kind of, to create some revenue coming in outside of music, you know, in those kind of low times when you're thinking about doing an album. That would be great. That would be awesome. Especially just the upfront fee, man. If you're like a Big Sean or somebody, or one of those kind of guys, and you're falling out of favor with people and you want to make a comeback, maybe signing a one album deal of a streaming platform and putting your all into making sure that album's great. And then, because I know he's got loads of sponsorships, so he's probably not a good example, but look at, I don't know, some other, let's think of some random artist, whatever. That might be a good way to kind of, you know, allow you, because I'd imagine a lot of the creative, even though some of the best creativity comes from poverty, right? Comes from not having enough, right? Kind of trying to make ends meet. That kind of angst, right, creates diamonds, right? That kind of pressure, right? You get the best stuff out of it. But sometimes as well, the stress of making sure you know where your next meal is coming can also hamper your art, right? Because your mind's in two places. You're not concentrating directly on the art. So being able to have an upfront fee, you know, collect your, 250,000, $500,000, $1 million from a streaming service, put that in your pocket, and also collect the streams money from the streams of the album, also collect from the merch, also collect from the tour, will allow you then, when you go there, make the next project, to be clear-headed, to come up with a fresh approach. I'd imagine so. Again, It's just me talking from outside perspective. I don't know what goes into the record industry. Maybe some bits about it that I have no idea about, but I think that would be a good way to go about things. Again, I can't wait for the interview to come out. I think it comes out later. What did Joe Budden say? It comes out, I think, 10 a.m. on YouTube. So probably later this evening. So if you're listening to this on Friday, it'll come out later this evening. So I definitely recommend you check it out on Joe Budden YouTube channel. But it's called The Pull Up, or Pull Up on YouTube. Just Google it. Just search it on YouTube and you shall find. Anyway, what's next on the list?